Hi, I'm Bob Hill. I'm the president of the Church of Scientology Mission of Riverdale at 308 Broadview Avenue in Toronto. I hope you're enjoying your holidays and sharing communication and creating during this time. Would you like to know how to improve your relationships with others? Is there someone you have trouble getting along with and you want to change that? Well, Scientology is a practical religion. It teaches a person how to know. And that's precisely what the word Scientology means, knowing how to know. Today's sermon is based on the writings of L. Ron Hubbard from the Scientology Handbook, Chapter 19, Fundamentals of Public Relations. All right? Now, it may sound a bit stuffy, but what I'm going to go over with you, if you apply it, you'll find out you have better relationships with other people. So here we go. There is another basic element of public relations that is often overlooked and given far too little importance, but when applied correctly, can give one a foundation for success in dealing with others. The original procedure developed by a man to oil the machinery of human relationships was good manners. Now, manners are the way you treat people, how you communicate, how you acknowledge, and your mannerisms in granting of existence to other human beings. Now, various other terms that describe this procedure are politeness, decorum, formality, etiquette, form, courtesy, refinement, polish, culture, civility, courtliness, and respect. Now, the idea that the only way you can have good manners is to be in some high-flying society or some high-flung environment is incorrect. Manners can apply in any environment you're in the most primitive environment to the most beautiful environment. So even the most primitive cultures had highly developed rituals of human relationship. A study of 21 different primitive races shows the formalities which attended their interpersonal and intertribal and interrelational relationships to be quite impressive. Throughout all races, bad manners are condemned. Those with bad manners are rejected. Thus, the primary technology of public relations was manners. You got it? Now I'm going to give you an exact example of manners, one that I've experienced, and it has to do with Aboriginal people. Now, I have had the opportunity to go into wilderness areas and spend time with Aboriginal people. What I discovered and what I observed is I found the people in that environment to be very mannerly. In other words, they didn't shout at each other. They communicated really nicely to each other. There was no swearing. And the people themselves, even though they were in a harsh environment, looked very relaxed and calm. And I thought to myself, now why would they act that way towards each other? And why would they have such manners and so on? Why would they treat each other so nicely? And I came to an interesting conclusion, at least for myself. And that was, they're in an environment that's harsh. And they have to survive. And surviving in that environment means you rely on other people. So in order to rely on other people, you have to treat them decently. And thus, they developed their own form of manners and how to be decent towards each other. So therefore, a person or team of people applying the techniques of public relations who have not drilled and mastered the manners accepted as good manners by those being contacted will fail. Such a person or team may know all the senior PR technology and yet fail miserably on the sole basis of exhibiting bad manners. Good manners sum up to granting importance to the other person. So there's one. So the person becomes very important. Now that's another interesting datum you can have, because you can think, well, manners don't apply to that guy who's living on the street. Like, how could I be mannerly towards that guy? Well, try granting that guy some importance and see how his demeanor will change. And suddenly, you may find that you're talking to a highly intelligent person. We've seen examples of that. A street person, somebody puts a piano on the street and suddenly they get up and start playing the piano, and they're a piano virtuoso. We actually have seen that online, and the person becomes well known and suddenly they're no longer in their degraded state. The thing you have to realize is there's not a big gap between the guy who's living on the street and the guy who's living in the penthouse. The gap is simply the decision here and how that guy's been treated, and the decision here. Now, if you apply the simple things of giving this guy importance here, who knows, he may end up in the penthouse in a year. It's not that far off. The second thing is using the two-way communication cycle. What does that mean? Well, that means you're communicating to another person. You're granting them enough life so that they feel comfortable talking to you and allowing them to communicate back to you. That's two-way communication. In dealing with people, it is impossible to get one's ideas across and gain any acceptance without two-way communication. By cycle is meant a span of time with a beginning and an end. In a cycle of communication, we have one person originating a communication to a second person who receives the communication, understands it, and acknowledges it, thus ending the cycle. In a two-way communication cycle, the second person now originates communication to the first person who receives it, understands it, and acknowledges it. In other words, the two-way communication cycle is a normal cycle of communication between two people. It is not a two-way communication cycle if either person fails in his turn to originate communication when he should. Whatever motions or rituals there are, these two factors, granting importance to the other person, number one, and using the two-way communication cycle are involved. Thus, a person violating them will find himself and his program rejected. Now, isn't that interesting? I'll give you an exact example of this. I happen to have been in a camp in the far north, up around James Bay. Now, in that environment, you had to treat people decently and you had to show manners because you always relied on other people. There was an individual who came into the camp, and the guys in his camp, because he was obnoxious, because he was so arrogant and only cared about himself, threw him out of his camp. He came to our camp and he said, "They threw me out of the camp. Do you guys think, that I'm like this?" And he was quite arrogant and quite overbearing. And so two guys in my camp said, "Yeah, get out." The next day that guy was put on a 4x4 and driven out of the camp because he wasn't acceptable in the environment. So arrogance and force may win dominion. Dominion means control and taking over a person, and control, but will never win acceptance and respect. Isn't that interesting? For all his mental technology, the psychiatrist or psychologist could never win applause or general goodwill because they are personally A, arrogant beyond belief. B, hold others in scathing contempt. They think man is an animal. People are all insane, etc. How could you have manners if you treated others in that way? Thus, just don't have good manners, i.e., I'll give that to you again. Thus, they just don't have good manners, i.e., they do not consider or give others a feeling of importance, and B, they are total strangers to a communication cycle. So you have these guys, they won't give others importance, they don't even get into a proper communication. Okay? So don't fall into that trap. Apply good manners. You'll find you'll get along spectacularly with anyone, anywhere, and don't deny even the lowest person on the rung some importance, because who knows, that simple communication may just pull them out of it. Think about that. And with that, I'll end the sermon. So, there you have it. Now, do you ever just talk about yourself and give no importance to the person you're talking to? That's what we just talked about. You can change that, and you can listen and invite two-way communication. Make 2021 your best year ever. Happy New Year. And I will now read to you the prayer for total freedom. Okay? Good stuff. Now this prayer for total freedom, this does give importance to other people. And it also gives importance to you. So let's try and apply some of the datums in this prayer, okay? May the author of the universe enable all men to reach an understanding of their spiritual nature. May awareness and understanding of life expand so that all may come to know the author of the universe, and may others also reach this understanding which brings total freedom. At this time, we think of those whose liberty is threatened, of those who have suffered imprisonment for their beliefs, of those who are enslaved or martyred, and for all those who are brutalized, trapped, or attacked. We pray that human rights will be preserved, so that all people may believe and worship freely, so that freedom will once again be seen in our land. Freedom from war and poverty and want, freedom to be, freedom to do, and freedom to have. Freedom to use and understand man's potential, a potential that is God-given and God-like, and freedom to achieve that understanding and awareness that is total freedom. May God let it be so. So again, Happy New Year's to you. Let's grant others some importance. Let's get into two-way communication with them. Let's make a better environment. Thank you.